The Los Angeles Dodgers add yet another elite arm to their bullpen, bringing in Scott to their bullpen, an elite closer for their bullpen that absolutely needed some improvement. That and more ahead next here at The Upside. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Sunday evening. Hopefully you guys had some fun watching some great football games today. The Rams almost did enough to knock off the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia in a snow game, but unfortunately just fell short. And the Ravens fell short against the Buffalo Bills after a two-point conversion attempt was dropped by Mark Andrews. So great game of football, but in Major League Baseball, we had a heavy bit of news today, bringing in Taylor Scott to the Los Angeles Dodgers. They absolutely needed to bring in an elite closer. Their bullpen was a little bit of an issue towards the end of the year. In the postseason, they were actually using starters in their bullpen to make things work, and they somehow managed to do so, thread the needle just right. In a year where they had significant injuries in that starting rotation, they still managed to win the World Series, and now they have certainly addressed any and all deficiencies in their lineup, in their rotation, and now in their bullpen. Hats off to the Dodgers for what they've done as far as building out this team. And yes, I get it. They're the evil empire. They're spending all this money. They're the team to beat on paper. They're by far the favorites for the World Series right now. I don't think there's anything that could happen between now and the start of the season that would take them out as the favorite for the World Series. So we'll have to see how the 162 plays out, and if they ultimately falter in the postseason, if that's a possibility that could still happen. But on paper, they certainly are the best team in all of baseball. We really appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us tonight. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Want to get into some of the bigger headlines that I've been paying attention to
after the news with Scott came out, and what players are left to sign, where will they go, and what could we really see these teams look like as we get closer to opening day. Welcome in, Aiden. Dodgers continue to spend money, man. They are so stacked. They are a team to beat in the NL West. Watch out with Roki and Snell. Crazy good. Yes, they have all the potential, all the talent in the world. My issue with the Los Angeles Dodgers, of course, is can they stay healthy? How will Roki adjust to playing in the USA? Will that bullpen be enough, or do they still need to add another piece? Will their lineup come together? Will they still be suffering the effects of the injuries they had last year? There are still some questions that need to be answered with that Los Angeles Dodgers team. But on paper, like I said, they are the prohibitive favorites. Welcome in, Holly. Welcome in, Cruz. Appreciate you joining us tonight. One of the other headlines that I did see before we came on the air is Max Scherzer. It's once again in the headlines. Remember, Justin Verlander just signed a one-year, $15 million deal to go to the San Francisco Giants. Scherzer, I think, had a little bit better year last year. Yes, both players are injury, big red flag injury risks right now. But Scherzer looks like he could be getting a deal. The Toronto Blue Jays are one such team that has reached out. They have been looking for some starting pitching this offseason. They've been connected to Nick Pivetta and Jack Flaherty as well. And now with Max Scherzer. So be curious to see if Scherzer decides the Blue Jays are the team for him, or if he decides to go with a team that's more likely to make the postseason. Right now, the Blue Jays, I think, have had a decent offseason over the last couple of weeks. Kind of pulled out of their tailspin a little bit, it seems like, and might be getting some headway here. Now, ultimately, they finished, second fiddle once again to Juan Soto. They finished second fiddle again to Roki Sasaki. But I think this is the time where the Blue Jays are going to have the best part of their free agency, the best part of their off season. Bringing in a Bregman, bringing in a Santander. Both of those are really viable options I could see the Blue Jays getting done here inside of the next week or so. That, and I think they're going to add some starting pitching as well. Though, the one big issue that they need to address, the elephant in the room, of course, is what's going on with Vlad Guerrero Jr. Are they going to be able to get the contract extension done before the artificial deadline of the beginning of spring training? Or are they going to be stuck looking at the trade deadline going, are we going to be in contention? Are we not going to be in contention? Should we trade him at the deadline? Should we hold on to him and try to get a contract done with him after the season? All those things become bigger and bigger questions every day that you go further into the season. That's why they have to get this extension done. They've been connected to Pete Alonso as kind of a first base fill-in for a year or two, where they would then move over Vlad Guerrero, who's actually pretty open to playing third base. He seems pretty open and honest when he says, hey, I'm interested in going to third base if it means a better team going forward for the Blue Jays. He seems open to that. He wants to play third base if that's where their best chance to win is for him to play third base. That would mean bringing in a guy like Pete Alonso. But if they don't, then obviously he'd play first next year for the Blue Jays. Maybe they bring in a Bregman. Maybe they bring in a Santander. But the Blue Jays need to do something positive for that organization. They need to address the elephant in the room of Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s extension. Once they get that done, then they can move on to the other big fish that they have to deal with. Cruz, any Yankees news? They're still looking at left-handed relievers with Tanner Scott off the board. I had heard renewed interest in Chafin and a few others as well. They're looking to kind of finish off their bullpen. It seems like that's the next piece that could go for the Yankees. Max to the Blue Jays, that is a very legitimate possibility. I think there are several teams out there that could use a guy like Max Scherzer. Atlanta Braves come to mind as one of the teams that could be a fit there as well. Aiden, can the Yankees get a third baseman now and add two lefty pitchers, please? Two lefties might be a little bit of a stretch for them, but I see them adding at least one. As far as a third baseman, middle infield type piece as well, I think they'll get that one done closer to spring training. I think they're going to go very cheap on that option there. Let's see here. Cruz, agreed, Aiden, so slow the last two moves. Yes, as we get closer and closer to the start of spring training, that's when I think they'll get some cheap deals done with some guys, maybe a 1 year, $2 million contract. I think that's the window that the Yankees are really looking for. Welcome in, Paranormal. Glad you're able to catch our live tonight. Thank you for joining us. What's new with the Yankees? They're still looking for some left-handed pitching. They're still looking for some middle infield, corner infield help. But they could be looking to offload Stroman first, and then seeing what they can do as far as adding some offense to this lineup as well. We appreciate you joining us once again. Going pretty well. Tim Hill should sign. All the relievers are starting to get signed. Cashman sleeping. There's still plenty of relievers out there. I don't necessarily think Cashman's sleeping. He's been very methodical with how he's gone about this offseason. got to give hats off to him for going step one, trying to get Soto done. That doesn't happen. They quickly pivot to Max Fried. Then they get Devin Williams. Then they try for Kyle Tucker. That doesn't happen. They pivot and bring in Cody Bellinger. Bellinger's done. They signed Goldschmidt. They've done, they were very productive in December. January's been a little bit of a slow start here for the Yankees as they try to finish off this team. Let's see here. Paranormal, I have not been watching live, but been rewatching what I missed. I apologize, I haven't been inactive. That's all right, my friend. Life happens. That's kind of what happened today with me. I, got tied up with life, and so we decided to do our live a little bit later tonight. But like I said, we're going to be live every single night, bringing you the latest from MLB's Hot Stove and throughout the regular season as well. So for those of you who are just catching us for the first time, hit that like and subscribe. We're going to be live every single day for you guys. We try to catch up with your comments. Feel free to tell us where you're watching from, who your favorite team is. We'll be happy to interact with you. If you have questions, if you have some trades that you wanted to get some ideas on, send those our way. We'll be glad to discuss them with you. Holly, Max to the Blue Jays would be something. Yes, it would. Honestly, I wonder if something like that would appeal to Scherzer. Obviously, he wants to try to compete for World Series. That's the only thing that really motivates him. But I wonder if the interest in playing in another country altogether would have some appeal to a guy like Max Scherzer. Just to, something he hadn't done yet, check it off his bucket list as far as something he hasn't done in Major League Baseball. I wonder if that would be something that would be interesting to him. Plus, if the Blue Jays get Vlad Guerrero signed, add Pete Alonso, then it wouldn't necessarily be a team that you're necessarily counting out as far as having a run in the postseason. With Max Scherzer and with the other pieces they would then add, that would make it a legitimate contending team on the American League side, which is very much wide open, by the way. If they can get something like that done, maybe Scherzer would have a legitimate chance to get to another World Series at that point. But I think that would be highly unlikely the way the team is currently built. And so I think there are other teams that have a more legitimate chance than others to get to the World Series or have a legitimate chance to get close to it. And those teams would be more of interest, at least in the past, to a guy like Max Scherzer, whose only motivation has been to win and win and win. Let's see here. Cashman Sleeping Man, come on, get Arenado. I think the only way that happens, Aiden, is one, if they get somebody to bite down in the entirety of the Stroman contract, and two, if they get the Cardinals to eat a significant portion of that Arenado contract. Now, those are two big fish that need to, two big things that need to happen in that sequence there. And the Stroman piece there, offloading that salary is no small task. They're probably going to have to attach an asset to it as well if they wanted to bring in a piece like Arenado. I still think Arenado gets traded before we get to the start of the regular season. The closer and closer we get to spring training, the less likely I think it's going to be, or the less chance it has for it to happen before spring training. But once we get to spring training, maybe somebody comes in with a tight quad, and they end up tearing their quad or whatever the case may be, or a hamstring pull, or something that puts them on the shelf for a month or two. Then we could see more teams open up that are interested in adding a third base, first base, DH type player like Arenado. But I do think Arenado will get traded before the start of the year. God no, keep Arenado out of the Yankees. Yo, what's up, brother? I think Arenado would be a good option at this point for the New York Yankees. I understand they have some pieces in the minor leagues that might be able to, show some worth to them. But for me, getting a proven performer, a quote-unquote impact player like Arenado would be good for the Yankees. Do I think it's the impact bat that they really need? Not quite. I think 3 years ago, with that type of Arenado, absolutely, that would have been the player just what they need right now. But right now, I think Arenado's a more regressing player than anything else. Still a good glove, still a good bat. Does he still have that same impact that he once did? No, and that's the worry I have if they bring in Arenado. I would look at the trade deadline and see what players are available and see if you can get the best bat on the market at that time. George, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us once again. What do you think of the Rangers are going to do about the bullpen closer? I still think they're trying to get Kirby Yates done. Once Kirby Yates either signs with the Rangers or goes off the board, then I think they pivot to the next option. Say they miss on Kirby Yates. I think Ryan Helsley is their first call. I think their next call would be to a guy like Duran in Minnesota. Maybe they go to San Diego, who's already expressed willingness to trade Suarez, their closer, and Jason Adam, who also has been a closer in his past as well. I think either one of those would be good options for the Texas Rangers. They have some internal options, absolutely. But you don't want to come into the season expecting those internal options to be able to handle a 162-game season, to be able to handle things in Game 7 of World Series situation. That's why you go out there and get a proven option at the back end of that bullpen when you're trying to have aspirations for winning a World Series. You don't just rest on your laurels and hope the minor league talent pans out at such a pivotal spot on your team. They've done a nice job building up that rotation, a nice job building up their lineup. They've really done a nice work reworking that bullpen, but the one piece that's still missing is that closer, and I think they will get somebody for that role. Will it be Kirby Yates? Money right now for relievers is extraordinarily high. Jose Leclerc, who is just on the Rangers, does have some closing experience. I still like the player, but 1 year, $10 million for Jose Leclerc, who's not made more than $15.5 million over the last 5 years. That's just crazy kind of money for Jose Leclerc. Then AJ Minter, 2 for 22, and then Scott ends up getting 4 years for $72 million. Just crazy money right now for relievers. Kirby Yates is the best option still out there. One other note I will mention on the Chicago Cubs. They were the second high bidder there for Scott's services. They offered him 4 for 66. They have now turned their attention to Carlos Estevez. I wonder if they get that deal done here in the next few days. Paranormal, so what do you think for a third or second base, whatever it takes for the Yankees? Who's the best bet? What do you predict, a trade or free agent? I feel like it's going to be a free agent. I think they're going to go very bargain basement as far as a free agent before the season, and then I think once they get to the trade deadline, then they'll bring in that impact bat. Then they'll flex around their infield however they see fit once they bring in that bat to that lineup there. Mike, Dodgers 25 World Series champs. I think that's very likely at this point, at least on paper. You think they're going to trade for J-Rod? I don't think so. I think J-Rod's going to be staying with the Mariners. Murakami, I think he's going to end up with the Mets or Yankees. I don't think he ends up on the LA Dodgers. Mets want Profar possibly. That would be a good fit for them, but they just signed Winker. They could use Profar as a replacement for Marte in that outfield, but I think they would try to go with more of a short-term option there in their outfield. Profar is looking for a 3-year deal right now. I don't think he's going to sign a short-term deal with the Mets. I still think Profar ends up back with the Padres. If teams don't score against the Dodgers by the 6th inning, they should call it quits. I don't know about that. That bullpen, to me, still looks a little bit shaky in the 6th, 7th, and 8th. I like Tanner Scott. I like Trinan. I keep mixing up his first name, but Scott, the guy they just signed. And, Trinan in the 9th anyway. However they decide to break things down with that bullpen, to me, you can still get to him in that 6th, 7th range. And, I like their comment there, but I still think you can still beat the Dodgers in that 6th, 7th inning range. Nicholas, we already got Goldie on the decline. I 100% don't want Arenado too. At least Goldie is pumped to be a Yankee. I do love that. Arenado hasn't even said heat wave is no trade clause for the Yankees. I'll put it this way. He did say earlier he had interest in joining the Yankees. Those reports were about 3-4 weeks ago. He let it be known that he was at least open to the idea. I get the point as far as a regressing player. You'd rather have somebody ascending, but you're going to have to give to get in order to get that type of piece on that Yankee squad. I don't think you're going to have the budget to do so. I think your primary focus is to offload Stroman's deal, go very cheap in that bullpen for the rest of the pieces that you need back there, a lefty reliever, go cheap as far as a middle infielder, guy who can play a little bit of third as well. And then once you get to the trade deadline, that's when you use the savings that you got from Stroman on a big-time bat for that lineup. Arenado said he would waive his no-trade clause for the Red Sox and Mariners, let him go there. I did not hear the Mariners. I heard about the Red Sox. I heard about, the Dodgers, obviously, and a few other West Coast teams. But the Yankees were one of the teams that we heard about 3-4 weeks ago that he would have interest in joining. Let's see here. Mike, Dodgers 25, bullpen, Tanner Scott, thank you. Trinan, Evan Phillips, Michael Kopech, Vesia, Dustin May. Dustin May, I think, may have a chance to make it into that starting rotation, at least to start the year with, Ohtani not able to start the year pitching and having Kershaw on the shelf for on the 60-day IL. They might give Dustin May a chance to break into that rotation. I do like some of the other arms that you mentioned there. Gratterall's going to be great after he gets back mid-season. I love the addition of Michael Kopech, but I still think you can get to that bullpen a little bit. I would add one more bullpen piece to that group there, and then that'd kind of finish off the bullpen for me. Not sure if, Mark, I'm not sure if I really want to watch baseball. I can see the Dodgers winning it all with all the hype and talent that they have. Very well could win 100 games and lose the divisional round. I think that's entirely possible. We've seen teams like this, come together before. The late 90s Yankees, anyway, were a great team. They won, several World Series there. But they still had their struggles in years around that. They still were the evil Empire Yankees, even when they didn't win the World Series in the couple of years that followed there. You remember the Yankees World Series or playoff runs, the famous battles that they had with the David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez led Boston Red Sox. Those were still the evil Empire New York Yankees at that point. And at this, with the Dodgers, what they've done so far, they've really maximized all of their, chances for success here this offseason. Sure, they didn't get the, number one free agent on the board in Juan Soto, but they darn near filled every other hole on that roster with the top free agent or trade option available to them. And now I still think they need one more piece, but, I think they're a pretty well complete team as currently constructed. I just think they could tinker with that bullpen just a little bit more, but you have to go out there and prove it on the field. You have to go out there and win the games. And even with a quote-unquote perfect roster, you're still not going to go 162-0. Was it Hayes on the Pirates that wants out? I'd want him. I did hear reports about that. I don't necessarily buy it yet. I don't think there's really going to be a market for him because what are you going to give up to the Pirates? A comparable player? Well, you're getting Ke'Bryan Hayes because of that contract and what he could give you at a corner infield spot. You're going to have to give to get, and I don't think there's really a team that matches up well in a trade for Ke'Bryan Hayes right now. So I think he stays and ultimately gets the Brian Reynolds treatment. Even though he's requesting a trade, I don't think it ultimately happens, and he stays with the Pirates long term. I'd agree. I was literally just talking to my father-in-law about this. MLB is letting the Dodgers destroy any competition. I don't know about letting. I mean, the rules are in place. The same rules are there for the Mets to go out there and do the exact same thing. They aren't doing it. In fact, they don't even have one of the top 2 payrolls in the sport right now. And they're balking at giving money to Pete Alonso, among other names as well. The Dodgers are certainly going out there and spending the money. They have a $375 million payroll. Second highest is the Yankees, around 300. And then you get into teams like the Mets and Phillies and teams like that. But I mean, this is what was once perceived as a Steve Cohen tax. The Dodgers have just blown right past, and meanwhile, the quote-unquote reason the tax is there for a guy like Steve Cohen to not spend, it's actually worked for him. He hasn't really spent to the top of the market outside of Juan Soto, and now you've got the Los Angeles Dodgers just blowing past it because they are literally raking in the money after bringing in Shohei Ohtani. Nobody anticipated the amount of money they were going to be bringing in because of Shohei. And boy, oh boy, do they have tons of it. And yes, they have deferrals to signing bonuses, etc. Yes, they're doing things a little bit differently than what we've seen in the past. Yes, the collective bargaining agreement will be addressing these issues in the next negotiation. But all of this is fair game right now. And the Mets have the same opportunity to do these things. The Yankees have the same opportunity to do these things. The Phillies have the same opportunity to do these things. And they are choosing not to. That's the difference. The Dodgers are going out on a limb with all the money that they're raking in because of Shohei Ohtani and making it work, figuring it out, dealing with the consequences later with the deferrals. And that, again, I expect will be addressed during the next collective bargaining agreement. But for now, certainly doing the best with what they have to work with. Welcome in VPCZX. Appreciate you joining us once again. Heel. The Dodgers better hope their current owner stays alive or else they are screwed. Dodgers have a group as far as an ownership group right now, the Guggenheim Group. They have several owners. Aiden, Yankees made some moves, please, Yankees make some moves, please, as a Yankees fan. Yes, the Yankees will make a couple of moves. I don't think they'll be to the level of a Scott type of a deal. I do think they'll still add a lefty reliever to that bullpen. Mike, we are so loaded on the rotation, bullpen, batters, and farm system. I'll agree with you on the rotation. I'll agree with you on the farm system. I'll agree with you to a certain extent in that bullpen. The batters, of course, they have a great top-heavy lineup for me, but they've kind of rounded it out quite well this offseason, and they still may add some more talent to this roster at the trade deadline. Dodgers are certainly the team to beat. Dodgers have a great TV deal. Yes, they do. He'll call me crazy, but a healthy Rangers or Astros team can take the Dodgers to 7 games. Also, as much as our people are scared of the Dodgers, I'm more scared of a mystery team that magically gets good. There's always one every single year. And it's not just the Rangers or Astros that I think could take the Dodgers in a series if things break the right way. I think teams like the Mets could do that. The Phillies could do that if they can get Trey Turner back going in the right direction. Orioles if they add a number 1 starter. Yankees could do it if they add an impact bat at the trade deadline. All of these teams have a real chance to take on the Dodgers. Yes, it looks like they're inevitable. They look like Thanos right now. But yes, I understand it's fiction. But what happened with Thanos? he ultimately was beaten. And you can still beat this team. All it takes is a short series for those guys to slump in that offense and for one of those starters to give up an earned run more in the postseason. It is tougher to pitch in the postseason. You have a rookie coming in Roki Sasaki in that rotation. Take advantage of it and make the most of your situation. Yes, the Dodgers are the favorite, which means they're going to have all the pressure on them squarely on their shoulders once they get to October this year, and they're going to have to rise above that pressure and win still. Meanwhile, the other team that they'll be facing, whether it be the Diamondbacks or Mets, Phillies, Braves, Padres, Giants, whoever it is in the postseason that ends up facing the Dodgers, they're going to be playing free and easy, clear underdogs. Go out there and just play and see what you can do. Yes, the Dodgers have amassed quite a team, but it can still be beaten just like anybody else's team. Awesome football games. Bills beat the Ravens. Eagles versus the Rams and the Commanders, stunning the Lions. Yes, it was a great weekend of football, and hopefully we get another great weekend next week as well. Chiefs versus Bills, and then we're going to have Eagles versus Commanders. NFC East, the NFC championship game will be all about the NFC East again. No surprise there. Eagles are a great team. The one surprise, of course, is the Detroit Lions ultimately faltering in a spectacular fashion against the Washington Commanders. Washington really rose to the moment anyway. Excellent games. Yes, they were. Your Blue Jays, I think your Blue Jays will impress you over the next couple of weeks. At least I'm hoping they will. I think they'll add at least a starting pitcher. I think they'll add at least one impact bat, whether it be Pete Alonso or Santander. Maybe they surprise us all and somehow pull off Alex Bregman, but I think they end up getting one of those bats. I think Detroit or the Red Sox end up getting Bregman at this point. Maybe the Chicago Cubs surprise us and get him, but I still think he's a favorite to the Red Sox. Tigers seem to be a little bit more balking at the number, so maybe they go a little bit cheaper with a guy like Yohan Moncada and then go for a bullpen arm in that an elite bullpen arm like Kirby Yates, or trade for Ryan Presley as well. Hardwick, I don't think either team will, but in the AL, only the Orioles and the Rangers, maybe the Royals. Who else could really give them a run in the AL? I think the Yankees could. I still think they need a bat, though. Orioles, I think, need to add a number one before they can be in that discussion. Astros, if they get another outfielder at some point in this offseason or during the regular season, I think the Astros have taken a little bit of a step back as far as overall talent. But they still have Alvarez, still have Altuve. They're going to have Paredes on this roster. I love the addition of Christian Walker. They still have Framber Valdez for one more year. So I still think they're going to be a legitimate team this coming season. After this year is when the questions really start. If their rotation loses Framber Valdez, how does this rotation stack up after this season in 26, 27, 28, and so forth? Mike, if Sasaki wins Rookie of the Year award, the Dodgers get a high draft pick on the draft. Yes, they do. That's kind of the new reward system for allowing players to really play their full seasons and try to win the Rookie of the Year award. If they finish in the top three, you get a higher draft pick. Commanders hopefully win the Super Bowl, and Ravens always know what to do. It's their yearly tradition. Well, they certainly struggled to get over the finish line today. I will say that. Ravens had a great season, but just got to wonder at a certain point what exactly is causing this team to struggle when the lights are the brightest. Commanders had a great win against the Lions, though. All right, let's head over to X and see if anything is happening this evening before we kind of get into some of the talk that I wanted to get to earlier today as well. Let's see here. Blue Jays have interest in Mad Max. We discussed that one already. 2 rushing touchdowns for Josh Allen tonight. That's great. Cubs are looking at Carlos Estevez as the closer option there. I wonder what he would get in free agency. I'm wondering if he gets like a 3-year, $33 million deal. If you base it off of what A.J. Minter got, I think he could easily get that number from the Cubs. I think the Cubs have roughly $15 million left to spend this offseason. Say if you backload that deal with Estevez, maybe make the first year, $8 million, the second year, $15 million, the third year, another, 15 or so million dollars. Something like that could work for the Chicago Cubs. And then they'd still have a little bit of money to add, or to use anyway, to add some people to that lineup as well. But Estevez is certainly the name right now for the Cubs to keep an eye on. Let's see here. Mark, sorry I was meant those three teams in the AL, Baltimore, Texas, and KC versus the new evil empire, Dodgers. I got what you were trying to say there, Mark. You're good. You're all good, my friend. Torberg unfortunately passed away. Saw that headline on MLB Trade Rumors. Um, this was a poll question put up by MLB Trade Rumors. Would you give up the entire 27 season if you're Major League Baseball in order to get a salary cap? Is it worth missing an entire season of your sport to get a salary cap? Absolutely not. We saw the damage the 94 issues brought. We saw the damage that just missing a few weeks of the season brought. We saw what COVID, missing as much time as they did, what that cost them. Major League Baseball missing time, that significant period of a time just to get a salary cap, to me, as ground shaking as it would be, losing an entire season of baseball would be more damaging to the sport than the benefit of getting a salary cap. Period. Let's see here. Blue Jays again interested in Scherzer. Cubs had offered Tanner Scott 4 for 66. We discussed that already. Nothing new there. Let's head over to MLB Trade Rumors just to see if anything else is going through. Nothing there. Okay. So some of the other things I wanted to get into were what are some of the holes that are left on some of these rosters that we have left. For instance, the Texas Rangers, the big hole that they have is still as their closer. Dodgers, to me, I think could use one more bullpen arm. Mets, I think, could use a first baseman like Pete Alonso, but they seem to have moved in a different direction. So if you're not going to bring in Pete Alonso, where are you going to spend the money that you would have given to Alonso? So they decided to bring in Winker, 1 year, $8 million roughly. What do you end up doing? Do you add another bullpen piece after A.J. Minter? Do you bring in David Robertson? I saw some headlines today about the Mets and Yankees having interest in him. Do the Rangers pivot to David Robertson if they can't get a deal done with Kirby Yates in free agency? A lot of different irons are in the fire right now, and one of the most active teams that I think we'll see over the next couple of weeks is going to be the San Diego Padres. We still haven't seen any resolution long-term for Michael King, Dylan Cease, or Luis Arraez, their top free agents next offseason. I think Luis Arraez, I don't think they're going to be able to get a contract extension done there. They seem too far apart. So for me, if I'm the Padres, I try to trade Luis Arraez and see what I can get back for him. We discussed a couple of different trades earlier. One would have sent Castillo to the Padres in exchange for Cronenworth and Luis Arraez. I think Castillo would have really given them some solid rotation depth there and allowed them to trade Dylan Cease and bring back some offensive talent in a Dylan Cease type of trade. I think that type of wheeling and dealing would work really well for San Diego. Another trade possibility we discussed was a Luis Arraez trade to the Texas Rangers. Maybe Ezekiel Duran and another piece going back to San Diego, in addition to maybe a reliever going back to Texas. That would solve the closer issue for Texas if they get Suarez or Adam, and then they would add Luis Arraez to kind of help out with that first base platoon there. Possibly play him a little bit at DH as well. But that would be another possibility. The Padres are one team I'm waiting to see what they do now that they've missed out on Roki Sasaki, and what they're going to do with the long-term future of Dylan Cease, Michael King, and Luis Arraez. Big questions for them to answer. One trade that I would expect this week, and I do mean this week, is Jordan Montgomery. I think he will be dealt. Texas Rangers, I think, are a fit. The Yankees could be a fit if they move on from Stroman, use him as a depth piece in that rotation. Other teams that need some starting pitching, the Toronto Blue Jays, Chicago Cubs could use him in their rotation. Minnesota Twins could use a little bit of depth as well. There's a ton of teams that could use a guy like Jordan Montgomery, and he's not going to cost a whole lot. So you're going to get the Diamondbacks to pay down roughly $15 million of that deal left. That means roughly $7 million would go on your actual payroll. Give him a marginal prospect, somebody they can look towards and say, hey, maybe he could be a utility player for us. Maybe he could be a backup catcher. Maybe he could be a middle inning reliever at some point. That type of a prospect is what you should give up in a Jordan Montgomery deal, and I think you might get it done. Let's see where he goes, but I would expect that trade to happen this very week. Mark, wish Texas could trade now for the Cardinals closer. Yeah, it will cost more, but I do think, again, it will come down to teams I mentioned before. Helsley, I think, only makes $8 million, so cost is actually pretty reasonable as far as the finances. As far as the trade cost of what it would cost to bring him in, I think a couple of mid-tier prospects. We're talking 15 to 20 range prospects, maybe one 15 to 20 guy, and then another 20 to 30 guy would get this trade done. I don't think his price would be overly high because, again, he's had injury issues in the past, up and down performance. Last year he was great, but again, just as easily he could be poor again this year. And I think the Cardinals would be wise to trade him now while his value is so high, and while relief pitching right now is so high on the free agent market as well. Let's see here. Could challenge the Dodgers maybe if Rocker takes a big step and Jacob and Nate are healthy? Absolutely. I think that's the big caveat with a lot of these teams with injuries. Dodgers have a lot of injury red flags in their rotation. If they have some injury issues, they could very well be in trouble at some point during the regular season. But they do have a lot more depth than they've had in the last couple of years. It reminds me a lot of the teams that they had in the late 2015 to 2020 range, where they had a lot of depth in that starting staff, a lot of homegrown talent coming through the minors. They kind of lost a lot of that talent between 2020 and 2023. And then when they brought in Shohei Ohtani, that's when they really stepped up their efforts and started to bring in some more depth. And this year, they're going to have roughly, 7, 8 starters that they can trust in Major League staff. And they're probably going to go with the 6-man rotation for the majority of the year. They certainly are built for the long haul. We'll have to see how they perform. But Texas, you mentioned, also going to have some injury red flags in there. Jacob deGrom, of course, Tyler Mahle. That's why they have 5 pitchers you might be able to count on for 120 innings. Beyond that, they could still use some depth, which is why I keep mentioning Jordan Montgomery as a legitimate option for the Texas Rangers. For me, the rotation I would go with is a 6-man rotation. I go deGrom, Eovaldi, there's my 1-2. John Gray, I'd see if I can trade him off of this roster if I'm able to bring in Jordan Montgomery. If I'm able to do that, save the money on John Gray and reposition the funds there to the bullpen, I think that would be the best case scenario there for Texas. Let's go ahead and kind of pencil that one in for me because that's how I think the rotation should go. But I think John Gray is a great individual, just like Nathaniel Lowe. But they found a way to move on from Nathaniel Lowe to save money. I think the same could be done here with John Gray. So if you get him off the books, then your rotation looks deGrom, Eovaldi. Then you get into the younger players in that rotation. Kumar Rocker, I think, would easily get a rotation spot, barring something unforeseen happening during spring training. I think Bradford pitches really well in that rotation. I think he has earned a spot in that rotation. If you bring in Jordan Montgomery, he's going to be in there. And then Tyler Mahle. So let's add it up here. We got deGrom, Eovaldi, Rocker, Mahle, Montgomery, and Bradford is my rotation. Leiter, I think, would probably stay in the minor leagues at least to start the year as depth. And if they have an injury in that rotation, he would be the first guy called up and may end up getting a number of innings this year as well, because I don't think those starters are going to stay healthy for the entirety of the season. For instance, Jacob deGrom, I don't think we can count on him for 30 starts as much as he might want to start 30 games this year. I think we're going to see him on the IL at least a couple of times this year. Same thing with Nathan Eovaldi. I think you can count on him missing about a month of the season. Same thing with Tyler Mahle, who hasn't really pitched in about a year and a half now. I don't think you can count on him for more than, say, 20, 25 starts. And right there, you already got yourself 3.5 months of Jack Leiter at the major league level. That's essentially 7 starters they'll be using for more than 100 innings this year, and they may have to add another one as well. They've done a nice job bringing in some depth as far as minor league arms that they could bring in if they have some significant long-term injuries to that rotation this year. But Texas still needs to address that bullpen first and foremost. Kirby Yates, again, we've mentioned him several times. Ryan Helsley. But for me, the one I would try to target would be somebody with control, somebody like the Minnesota Twins closer Duran. That would be the one I would be trying to trade for. Maybe trade Josh Smith in that deal and maybe a prospect or two go to Minnesota in that one and see if you can get Duran in. Then you try to bring in Luis Arraez because now you have some lineup flexibility in there with Josh Smith no longer being there, taking at bats. Now you have at bats available for Luis Arraez. But we'll see what happens. What would Texas have to give up to get somebody like Ryan from the Twins? For me, I would rather have Duran, the closer. As far as the value there, let's go ahead and head over there just to kind of see what it would look like. Let me go ahead and log in real quick. There we go. 2-team trade. Twins, let's look at their roster first. Majors. So Joe Ryan, the starting pitcher, 3 years left to control. That's 54. You'd have to give up more than what you'd have to give to bring in Pablo Lopez, according to this calculus here. But for me, I would rather go for the bullpen option here because they still need a closer first and foremost. We did do a Pablo Lopez trade for Texas earlier. It didn't really quite work quite as well as we would have liked. You'd probably have to package together Bradford, Smith, and a couple of other minor leaguers in there to get Pablo Lopez. That's why I would rather go out and get the closer, Duran there. 3 years of control there, only 22 value. Smith has, I believe, like 14 value, and then put a couple of lower end prospects in that $4 or $5 million value range, and you get the deal done there. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just show it one more time here. Let's go ahead and do the Rangers as the second team. So if you do Duran to the Rangers, Rangers would have to give up something of value, and I think this is where, let's go ahead and do a 3-team trade. Let's make it interesting. I'll show you why here in just a second. Padres are the team I would go to here. Okay. So let's say the Rangers bring in Duran. They go to the Padres. They want the major league talent. We're going to go towards Luis Arraez, only 6.2. We're going to send him to the Rangers. I really like Adam as well. I think those are two really good options in the bullpen to get Duran and Adam. Now look at the value you're bringing in. Rangers are getting roughly 32 value here. So what do the Twins want in return? Well, they're wanting cheap contracts because they're having an ownership change there. So what could the Rangers ultimately part with? So you asked what the Rangers have to give up to get Duran in, or to get a Joe Ryan in. Around that value point, you're looking Kumar Rocker. That's the second highest value player that the Rangers have. That ain't going to work. You're not going to trade Walcott. You're not trading Young. You're not going to trade Garcia after you just acquired him. So your first tradable piece would be Alejandro Rosario. You include him in the deal. Say you decide to go ahead and flip around Jake Berger, even though that wouldn't happen. I think you'd be better off including a guy like Josh Smith. So let's go ahead and say you do Josh Smith. You do Rosario and Josh Smith, you're at 30 value, and you still have another 15 to go before you even get in the ballpark. You'd probably have to include Bradford to take over his spot in the rotation, and now you've really decreased your major league talent in Smith and Bradford while you really haven't addressed the issue, or while you still haven't done enough to make it worth the Twins' while to give up Joe Ryan. But for the trade here of 32, I'm getting 3 major leaguers to come in and make a difference for the team immediately. So let's say we do Duran to the, let's see here. There's Duran. Let's do Duran to the Padres. He's kind of the long-term answer in their lineup for Luis Arraez. Is he Luis Arraez? Obviously not, but he'd be somebody a lot cheaper of a cost with a similar skill set. A little bit more pop, obviously. You'd still need to give up more because you're still looking around 10 value, 9.9 to be specific. So let's say around 6. What could they give up? A Dreiling would be a piece here. I'm not giving up Castillo at all. You could not convince me to give him up in any situation here. Toyota would be tough to give up as well. I would be looking Alejandro Osuna. Let's go ahead and trade him to the Padres. So there's the trade there that satisfies that side of the equation. Luis Arraez, maybe you could throw in a minor league pitcher, a very low-end minor league pitcher there. But for the Twins side of things, what could they get? And for me, if you're bringing in Luis Arraez, you're going to have to free up some at-bats, and that means Josh Smith would have to hit out the door. So there's 14.3. You need roughly 8 more in this deal. I would put Dreiling in this deal to the Twins. And then just kind of go down here to page 2. We're going to go kind of really cheap here on a couple of options. Mitch Bratt was one of the arms that we had mentioned was available for Ryan Helsley before. Let's go ahead and put him to the Twins as well. So there you go. There's the Twins satisfied. I think they could use another small piece just to finish it off. I don't know. Curtis maybe. Just trying to look for somebody's low value contract or low value piece. Aaron Zavala maybe. Older prospect who hasn't really lived up to the hype yet. Just to kind of finish off the deal. 4 low-cost contracts obviously going onto their books. They don't really give up a starting pitcher, but they get a decent pitching prospect in Mitch Bratt, a former second-round pick anyway, in Dylan Dreiling. But the big piece for them that they bring in is Josh Smith, that they can flex all over that infield, that if they do try to trade Carlos Correa, that one would work there. Let's go ahead and look at some of these comments here. what would Texas have given? Okay, only missed one. I like your trade, just thinking to add pitching as much as possible. That's kind of the thought process here. I'm going to go ahead and validate the trade, fair trade. I'm going to go ahead and post it. That way, if you guys follow baseball trade values, you guys can see it on the site. So there's the trade itself. Rangers get 3 players on their active roster. Now, they'd still have to figure out what they're going to do with the rest of this roster, because for me, they're giving up Duran. They're giving up Josh Smith, but where are these pieces going to fit in that bullpen? They already signed tons of arms to that bullpen. Not all of them are going to make the opening day roster. I think Armstrong has a really good chance to not actually make it to the opening day roster and be designated for assignment even after signing a free agent deal with Texas. That just shows you how many different arms the Rangers have brought in this offseason. And then let's kind of finish off the Rangers here, just to kind of finish the thought process on this one. The second piece of this trade would be going out there and let's do a 3-teamer just to keep the math simple here. The Rangers would go after the Diamondbacks, Jordan Montgomery. All right, to the Rangers, they would include $15 million roughly of his salary. He's making $22 this year. There's your cash added. Now you have roughly 4 value coming back. The Rangers could give up a decent level piece there. You're looking around a 4 value. Remember the pieces that we just traded away. John Gray would be about the trade value here. But obviously they're not looking to bring in John Gray. So you'd have to bring in a third team. That third team looking for some starting pitching. We've discussed a few different teams, but I really like the Brewers here for that. So the Brewers, they would get John Gray to help out that rotation. Plus, I think they could sign him long-term there. Gives them some long-term answer there. And then the Rangers, to me, I would be looking to trade a guy like... The one I would trade is probably Rosario at 15, and I'll show you why here in just a second. Now you give him another top-tier pitching prospect. You have no room on the major league level for another starting pitcher that you're going to be developing. So Rosario really rose out of nowhere. You weren't counting on this player being something of significant value. I think he'd be the easiest tradable piece here. But the reason why I like this for the Rangers, I'll show you in just a second. Let me get it pulled up. See if I remember the piece here. Jesus Mate, there he is, to the Rangers. Now the Rangers already have, the Brewers already have several good position player pieces already at the major league level. They could use one of those pieces to bring in a premium asset as far as a starting pitcher, and this value is about right here. You get Mate for Rosario essentially, and you get John Gray for your rotation. There was one other prospect I liked here. Let's see if I can find him again. It was round 2. Let's do the competitive balance pick to the Rangers, just to kind of add one more. Was it Juan Baez? I think it was Juan Baez. So the Rangers still need to add another 8 in value here, and the Diamondbacks still need to be satisfied. So that's where the value would really come in, 4 and 4. Let's finish this one off, and then we're good. Let's go ahead and send a pitching prospect in Santos to the Diamondbacks. And then another Cameron Colley to the Brewers. And there was another pitching prospect. Let's do Aiden Curry to the Brewers. Okay. Now that kind of cleans up the prospect sheets anyway for Texas. They get rid of a couple of their older prospects that still have value that they have no room for on the major league side of their roster. They pick up a really good prospect in Jesus Mate and a compensation pick. Diamondbacks get off of Jordan Montgomery and bring in Winston Santos. I think the Diamondbacks would still want a piece like Ezekiel Duran, like we did in our other trade there, rather than Winston Santos. But if you can maybe put in Justin Foscue instead in this deal. But this trade for the Diamondbacks, they get off of Jordan Montgomery and the headache there, and they get a prospect with which to work. I think Santos is borderline top 10 prospect for the Rangers right now, but the Brewers basically are trading a position player prospect in exchange for some pitching and getting some starting pitching in there as well for this year that they absolutely do need. They've got roughly a five-man unit, and a lot of those guys are coming off of injury risks. John Gray would be no different there, but he would certainly be a lot more stable in that rotation than Brandon Woodruff. Nestor Cortez had his issues with the Yankees last year. We all know about those. But I think getting him in a trade for Devin Williams was a good get for them because I think they could get him on an extension. Same thought process here for John Gray. So let's see here. Bringing in 28, sending out 29. Basically the same value for them. Almost the same value for them as well. Brewers could use another piece there, honestly, but let's go ahead and validate the trade and post it. Now, I can already hear the voices of Brewers fans saying, "What are you doing trading Jesus Mate?" Well, it's to get some starting pitching this year and for the pitcher in Alejandro Rosario. I think Rosario, I can't remember if he's borderline top 100 or if he's actually in the top 100, but he's close to it for the Texas Rangers. I can't remember if he's in that top 100 or not. They still haven't come out with it yet for this year. Let's look it up. I can't remember if Rosario is in there. Yes, he is. So you're getting a top 100 pitching prospect in Alejandro Rosario. Let me look at the Brewers and see where their guys rank. Mate isn't even in there, but he will be. Rosario was in one, I thought. Yes, he is in the top 100. That's what we just discussed, or what we just looked up anyway. Number 86. But again, he's a Double-A pitcher. Had a great year last year. Let me pull up his numbers for you guys. His stats in his career last year again really came out of nowhere. Was the fifth round pick in 23. But look at his numbers. 2.24 ERA. 129 strikeouts. Those are great numbers. And you'd capitalize on that by bringing in some position player talent in Jesus Mate. For me, the thought process here is, hey, we really like Sebastian Walcott. What can we do to get another bite at the apple with a very comparable player? And that's the thought process in this trade. But there's the two. Alrighty. I think that's pretty much it. Just going to check and see if anything else is happening at the moment. If you guys have any trade ideas that you'd like to send our way, we would love to discuss them with you. Don't think Texas would give him up. I think Texas would if they had their starting pitching pretty much set already, which is what they do have, long-term options in that rotation already. I think they'll try to have room for Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker, but I think they're going to try to have experienced starters to at least make them earn that role, just like they're doing with the bullpen this year. I don't think there's an easy pathway for Rosario to get to the major leagues at this point. Now, if he has another great year like in 24, like he in 25, like he did in 24, then I don't think there's any way the Rangers would trade him. But for me, I really like the idea of bringing in Jesus Mate and Juan Baez as well from the Brewers. I think those two players have real elite level status on them. Jesus Mate, I think, has superstar written on him along with Sebastian Walcott. That could be your double play combination after Semien and Seager are no longer here. Mate is, I believe, 17. Walcott is, 19? Something like that. I forget how old Sebastian Walcott is. He's 18. So say he gets up to the big leagues in 2 years. Semien would probably have to move off of second base or Walcott would move around the infield a little bit until Semien was off of this roster. Then he would be your second baseman at that point, or he could be your third baseman with Josh Young maybe moving over to first base at some point. But Walcott would easily be an up-the-middle option for you. When Corey Seager is no longer able to handle the field, obviously Mate then would be the next guy to step in there. But really like the idea of bringing in that type of talent for Texas. When in doubt, I would rather go position player talent because those guys have a far greater chance of succeeding at the major league level. It's hard. It's very difficult to get starting pitching to develop in your system. Kumar Rocker is the first real chance the Rangers have had at it in years. They thought Jack Leiter would already be established at the major league level at this point when they drafted him. That has not worked out the way they had hoped. Same thing with many of the prospects that they've had over the years. And Alejandro Rosario, as great as he was in year one, Rangers fans pretty much know this song and dance all too well. When's the second shoe going to drop? When's the injuries? When's the the yips going to happen? All those kinds of things. You don't want to wish that on a player, but it just seems to happen a lot more frequently with the Rangers pitching prospects than anything else. So getting elite position player talent to come through and to succeed at the major league level and spend in free agency like they have on the starting pitching front, while it's not necessarily the normal formula teams use for success, that's the way the Rangers found their success and won a World Series doing so, by bringing in Jacob deGrom, bringing in Nathan Eovaldi, bringing in John Gray, Andrew Heaney, trading for Max Scherzer, trading for Jordan Montgomery. That's the way the Rangers found their success there. So I think just kind of continuing that level of success, continuing to bring elite position player prospects through the system, Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter, Josh Young, among others. I think that's the way Texas needs to continue to operate. As much as you'd rather, have a pitching prospect like a Paul Skeens, those guys succeeding, especially in Texas, are so infrequent that Kumar Rocker might be the first one in 15, 20 years? And if he becomes an ace, he certainly would be the best one in 30 years at this point? That's how hard it's been for Texas to develop some starting pitching. Alrighty, appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Like I said, if you have any trades you want to float our way, if you have any news that you see pop up there that we haven't caught on to, we'd love to hear it from you. But we'll have some videos coming out tomorrow as well. We'll discuss a little bit of the football games that we saw this weekend in some of our short videos that we post tomorrow. And then we'll be live again tomorrow around 8:30, 9 o'clock tomorrow night. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Thank you guys so much for joining us here at the Upside. It's been a lot of fun covering baseball with you guys throughout the offseason, and we look forward to continuing that success with you guys going forward. Appreciate all you guys joining us tonight. Y'all have a great one. Stay safe out there, and stay warm, everybody.